Welcome to the In Love with PMDD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist, and I help you stop the monthly PMDD breakups. PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It is in approximately 1 in 5 women, and it makes you want to break up with your partner approximately 1 to 2 weeks before your period every single month. So as someone who has suffered with PMDD for over 18 years, I dedicated my doctorate practice to helping partners navigate those monthly PMDD breakups with everything from attachment styles, triggers, sensitivity to noise, sensitivity to touch, all of the things that you really struggle with when you're in PMDD. And I also dedicated my dissertation to a phenomenological study of the relationship experiences of partners of individuals who suffer with premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So I'm not just here to help the sufferer, the one who is suffering with PMDD. I am here for the partners as well. So if you need those private sessions, make sure you go to inlovewithpmdd.com and get those tools. So let's get into this week's PMDD trauma transformational tools that is going to help you stop the monthly breakups and stop the suffering and stress in your PMDD relationship. Let's get into it. Today, I want to talk to you about one of the biggest discoveries that I have made since my breakup with my ex-PMDD partner, which it has been a year now since the breakup. And one of the things that I've been doing over this past year is really working on myself, taking personal accountability for the things that I, could have done better, should do in the future, and not in a way of blaming and shaming myself or having any regrets, but more so in a way of being self-aware. That's one of the biggest things that I work with my private clients with when it comes to having that level of emotional intelligence, which is basically what it is when you are able to look at a situation that you've been having with your PMDD partner. And instead of blaming them, instead of immediately saying, they're the problem that we keep having these fights and arguments, they're the reason why they keep triggering me every month, they're the reason why I go off on PMDD rage, they're the reason, they're the reason, they're the reason. Well, when you put the responsibility on the other person to change, then you leave yourself susceptible to suffering because until they change, you are going to suffer. If they are the problem, then they are the solution, meaning you won't have a solution as long as you're putting the blame on your partner. And this is something that's really hard for a lot of PMDD sufferers because they're saying, no, Dr. Rose, they are the one that's triggering me. They really are triggering me. And they really are the cause of why I go off on PMDD rage. And when you do that, then you don't have to do any work because they're the problem. You kind of take your hands off of the situation and you say, so, as soon as they change, then we'll be able to move forward. As soon as they give me more space in PMDD, then we'll be able to move forward. As soon as they give me the attention, affection, and validation I need, then I'll be able to have peace in PMDD. You're putting everything on them. And so what happens is if your partner is just like doing the same thing, putting it on you, like, I don't have any problems with her, it's her PMDD, that's the problem. So now both of you are blaming each other and nobody is coming to a solution because nobody is feeling that level of responsibility to move or to work on the relationship because they're waiting for the other partner to do so. And this is how you get in this cycle of years and years and years of being in the same fights, the same arguments, never getting to the root of the problem because you're always blaming the other person. So I know this cycle because I've counseled hundreds, almost thousands at this point, between the individuals that I interviewed for my dissertation a year ago. And I see that pattern and I saw that pattern so much. And I was like, you know what? When I went through the breakup, I said, I'm not going to blame my partner. As much as there were situations where I know for sure he could have handled them differently, I know for sure the outcome of our relationship would have been different if he would have handled it differently. I couldn't do anything about that. I cannot control anyone but myself. And I took that level of responsibility and I said, okay, right now, the only person I'm in a relationship with is myself. The only person that I have personal accountability for is myself. So what can I do? What can I learn from this situation? What can I learn in a way that I'm not blaming myself for putting myself in that situation? And again, the blame and the shame came. I just had to work through that. When I first went through the breakup, I did. I blamed myself because I felt like I should have been able to hang in there. I should have been able to stick through some of the things that I was going through. And the reason, because I was the one that chose to end it, I remember my ex PMDD partner said, just to be clear, I just want to make it clear that you're the one that's filing for the divorce. You're the one that's breaking up. And I was pretty much in a situation of saying, yes, I'm not denying that. I'm not denying that I'm the one that's making the decision. But because I also knew deep down, I gave so many chances for that decision to not be made. It was not a PMDD monthly breakup. It was not like a one and done, like, oh, you did something to trigger me and I'm done. It was pretty much a situation where I said, hey, this is what I need being in PMDD, and this is what I need in my follicular phase. I put it all on the table and I literally said, if you're willing to work on this in these specific ways, because this is what's causing the damage in our PMDD relationship, then we'll be good. I would have 100% stayed with my ex PMDD partner had he agreed to do the work specifically for the situations that were happening around PMDD. And that's when he pretty much was like, yeah, that's not me. I can't do that. That's not comfortable for me. And you know what? There was a moment in time where I was trying to convince him, I was trying to force him, I was trying to, lay everything out and say, hey, like almost instill this level of like, I don't want us to end. If you do not work on this, we are not going to make it. And I was trying to make it very clear because when I'm all in, I'm all in. And when I'm all out, I'm all out. And I felt myself slipping into that realm of being all out because for me, that's the point of no return. And I was feeling myself slip into that. And that scared me because I never had a plan for my PMDD relationships to end. I was always like, I have the tools. I'm helping all of these other couples mend their relationships, stop the monthly PMDD breakups, and I can't even do it in my own. So that was the level of shame. And that's when I realized when I was working through that it was pretty much not a situation that I had to feel shame for because I had done everything. And I made sure that I did everything that I could before I made the decision to walk away. And one of the things when I was doing the work that really came out of that was the whole time. And if you listen back to past episodes, you hear me talking about me having an avoidant attachment style. I always talked about that because I really related to my clients that had an avoidant attachment style. And then my partner really related to individuals that had an anxious attachment style. So it was really good for relating to couples. And then since the breakup, it's been a year and I'm getting into these dating relationships or dating and all these things. And I'm like, I'm actually not avoidant and I'm not an introvert. So those were the two things that I had created an identity for within the, relationship. And then now that I'm single, I was like, wait a minute. Why don't I have this avoidant attachment style? Why, initially when I started dating, I started to have an anxious attachment style. And so it made me, rewind and say, okay, let me go back to what causes an avoidant attachment style within PMDD relationships. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm really going to talk to you about why you may feel avoidant in your PMDD relationship and where that's coming from and why that may not be the core of who you are as a person. I labeled myself an avoidant because that's a lot of times what avoidants do. They're like, I'm avoidant, I'm anxious, I'm this. And it's like your situation may be bringing that out of you, but that's not necessarily your identity. And that was a game changer for me when it came to working on myself because there I was single and I'm working on being avoidant and I wasn't even avoidant anymore. And I was like, what happened? And one of the things that made me feel avoidant in my past PMDD relationship was I had a fear of being overwhelmed by my emotions because I knew how that impacted my partner. I knew that when I had mood swings, when I felt really anxious, when I felt really fatigued, when I felt really depressed, when I felt all of these emotions that happen within PMDD that are very intense, the way my partner reacted to them was it triggered him. And I knew that. And I knew that it hurt him. And I started to get avoidant because it was overwhelming for me to manage my PMDD emotions when they were causing my PMDD partner to suffer. And when you love someone, you never want to cause them pain. So what you'll start to do is you'll detach from them to protect them from feeling like they're overwhelmed with emotions. Like I knew that it triggered my partner and I didn't want to trigger my partner. So I started to detach when I got into PMDD. And I know a lot of my private clients can relate to this, where when you go into PMDD, you kind of go into a hole. You get really avoidant, you get really isolated because your partner is not that safe place for you. And that was one of the things that I had to realize, that I picked my ex PMDD partner based off of my follicular phase. And I've said this time and time again, where when I'm in my follicular phase, we were great. We were fine. I was outgoing. I was extroverted. I was, in a good mood all the time because I'm genuinely a happy, upbeat person. It's just when I go into PMDD, it shifts. And that was a trigger, and so it caused me to detach because I was like, I don't want him to feel this level of suffering because of how I'm shifting in PMDD. And I knew that I shifted and I started to have shame. I started to have a lot of shame about having PMDD because I felt like, oh my gosh, here it goes again. You're about to ruin his mood. You're about to ruin his emotions. You're about to stress him out. You're about to trigger him. And so I started to detach myself and said, okay, if I limit communication with him, maybe I won't trigger him as much. I thought that was the solution. I thought I was doing the right thing by shielding him from being in PMDD, when in reality, it caused this big shift in intimacy because there was a gap for 2 weeks out of the month. I didn't feel close to my PMDD partner. I didn't feel like we were connected. I didn't feel supported. He didn't feel supported. We were just existing. And a lot of times we were delusional to be like, oh, we had a good PMDD month. We had a good PMDD month because we didn't speak to one another. We just text. Like that was the level of intimacy that we were getting to. Like basically, we'll survive in PMDD for 2 weeks out of the month if we only text each other. If we talk on the phone, we're guaranteed to trigger one another because he's going to hear that I sound down. I'm going to hear that he sounds triggered. He's going to be, anxious. I'm going to be avoidant. And I took on that identity. And we thought the solution was to just go further and further away from each other. But over time, that's not sustainable. So if you are in that situation where you're thinking it's sustainable for you to be that detached from your partner, and that's the way that you're going to survive the months in PMDD, it's not going to work. And the reason why I know it's not going to work, because over time, I didn't feel close. I didn't feel emotionally supported. I didn't feel emotionally collected, and neither did my partner. And so I took responsibility of saying, you know what? I thought the solution was to just run away and to isolate. And that's not sustainable. That was on me. And it was on him to say, you know what? I'm agreeing to this. Like neither one of us should have been in a place of agreeing to shut down that level of communication, because you don't exist in a relationship to not be close to your partner. If you find yourself emotionally detaching from your partner, that's not a relationship. I spoke more to my friends than I did with my partner towards the end, because I felt safer to be open with my emotions and PMDD more with my friends, because they could handle my PMDD mood swings. They could handle me being in my, and when I say mood swings, I don't even mean anger. What I mean is they could handle me being less energy, me going internal, as my ex used to call it. And my ex partner could not. And I couldn't blame him for that. He didn't sign up for that. He didn't want that. He couldn't handle that. It caused him to feel anxious. It caused him to have emotions that he didn't want to experience. And he deserves to be with someone that has that level of emotions that causes him to not be triggered all month long. He deserves that. And I truly hope that he finds that. That's why there's no three things. There's no bitterness, there's no resentment, and there's no unforgiveness. Because I took the personal responsibility and said, you know what? From now on, I need to choose someone for my luteal phase, my ovulation phase, my menstruation phase, and my follicular phase. I need to take the time to see that this person is able to handle me, and not handle me meaning they're accepting verbal and physical abuse from me and PMDD. By handle me meaning I'm not triggering them in a negative way when I go into my luteal phase. Because I have a secure attachment with someone that I'm dating right now, and they're fine. If I'm less energy, they're fine. They're just like, oh, okay, we're gonna chill, or we're gonna, let's not do that because that might not be too much. That might be too much for you, or let's do that. Like it doesn't bother them. And that's when I realized there are individuals that exist that can that can thrive in your luteal phase, that you can feel safe to be like open with your emotions and say, you know what, I'm feeling Like, I don't really want to go out right now. I'm feeling like, can we just stay in? And not being like, oh, you want to stay in? Like, what's wrong? What did I do wrong? And really internalizing it and blaming themselves and saying, oh, I guess I'm just a piece of crap if you don't want to hang out with me. Like that was a situation that I was in where I was expressing my emotions and it was taken as a personal attack. So then I didn't feel like I could express my emotions. And there was this level of emotional detachment. And that led to the PMDD breakup, the big PMDD breakup, not the PMDD monthly breakup. So I really want you to take the time to really examine if you're calling yourself anxious, if you're calling yourself avoidant, ask yourself that question. Just be really curious and say, am I really an avoidant before you take on that label? Or is it a possibility that because of the state of my relationship and because of the way my partner, reacts or interacts with PMDD, maybe that's a reason why I'm avoidant. Maybe that's a reason why I'm anxious. And I'm creating something very special specifically for the attachment styles. But in the meantime, if this is something that you know that you need help with and you're like, Dr. Rose, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling avoidant, I'm feeling like I can't be open with my partner, it's causing us to be drift more and more apart. The intimacy is pretty much gone, which is a trigger because when you remove intimacy, it's absolutely a trigger for your PMDD relationship. Do not think that you can sustain a PMDD relationship without intimacy. I've been in that land of delusion, and all it did was slowly fizzle out. And then there was this level of bitterness and resentment because there was no, intimacy. And it's almost like, what's the purpose of being in the relationship? If there's no intimacy, why are we here? What are we doing? And this is what leads to the PMDD monthly breakup. So if this is something that you know that you need help with, go to inloveWithPMDD.com, get those counseling sessions where we can just really get to the root of, are you really avoidant? Are you really anxious? And how we can get you to that secure place. Because basically what I was saying before was, if I would have stated that I'm avoidant because of this, and my partner was willing to work on it and say, okay, what can we do to get to that secure place? Fine. If your partner is willing to do the work in order to uncover the root of these attachment styles that are causing this emotional detachment, it can absolutely work. But both parties need to be willing to work. But what I will say is one needs to be willing to take the first step. And a lot of times it's been the partner, and then other times it's been the PMDD sufferer that has said, hey, we need these counseling sessions. We really need to work on this. It really doesn't matter who it is that comes first, but one of you have to make the decision and say, enough is enough. I'm tired of going through the same cycle in my PMDD relationship. I need to get to the root of this because I don't want to go another month feeling this emotionally detached, not having this intimacy, not getting my needs met, bitterness, resentment, the monthly fights, the arguments, the stress that impacts every other area of your life. If you're in that cycle right now, you need to be willing to do something about it because nothing is going to change if you don't change it. And I realized that nothing changed until I called myself out, until I called my partner out and said, hey, this is not working. And I don't want to live in this land of delusion anymore. I can't exist in this. It doesn't feel comfortable. Yes, a couple of months of faking it it's not even faking it till we make it because we never made it, right? You're just faking it until you can't fake it anymore. So again, go to nlovewithpmdd.com, get those counseling sessions. And until next time, we got this. Love you. I hope this PMDD episode helped you and your partner in your struggles within your relationship. And if this is something that you know that you need help with and you need further support, individualized support, make sure you're going to inlovewithpmdd.com and you're getting those private sessions to really work through what you're going through in your relationship, specifically in regards to PMDD. And also, I want you to leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. What this does is it helps other PMDD sufferers and partners find this show that can help them get these free PMDD relationship tools. I remember what it felt like to not know that there were tools out there specifically for PMDD relationships. So I want to make sure that you are sharing these tools with others, share them on your social media, share them with people that you know that are also struggling in their PMDD relationships. Until next episode, this is Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist. One more thing, I almost forgot. I now have the Fresh Start PMDD Partners Workbook. What this workbook can do is if you've had past traumatic experiences with your partner, past fights, past arguments, and they keep coming up every single month in PMDD, I created a fresh start workbook so that you can deal with all of the traumatic experiences that have happened in the past in PMDD rage and all of these things so you can stop going through the same cycle again and again and again. So get that workbook. It comes with a video episode of the actual podcast that I recorded on getting a fresh start in your PMDD relationship. So you're not continuing the same cycle again and again and again. So make sure that you get that workbook. And if you need those individualized counseling sessions, you know where to go, inlovewithpmdd.com. Until next time, we got this. Love you.